there's bound to be complications.
I don't need a counselling session, I just need to get out of this house!
Oh no, they've been doing this all week. Hold on.
And what did you think?
Well, yeah, I didn't get much out of it, I gotta say.
There's this girl,
And she's like robbing ATM machines.
Yeah.
She's robbing ATMs, and then
she gets arrested with her friend, and then they sentence her to go live with her mom, and she has the ankle bracelet on, and then she has to live there for, I think it's like 8 months or something like that, for her to get reacquainted to life. And see, it's interesting because what I thought you wouldn't like is the first part of this, which is that she's just a horrible person.
yes, she's very unlikable.
Yeah, you don't like her at all. But I kind of enjoyed the fact that, okay, this is the beginning of the film and it just kind of feels mundane and boring in the fact that this is just kind of like a generic horror film of how it starts out. But then, because I agree with you, where in the beginning it kind of feels like just blocks and segments that are kind of just put next to each other instead of having a flow, because I kind of felt like that there was just like, okay, here's a scene, here's a scene, here's a scene.
And they were not threaded together with an interesting character development.
Right, or there wasn't really any flow to it. There wasn't a creative flow. It was just kind of like, we need a scene with this to happen, we need a scene for this to happen, we need to have a scene for this to happen. Kind of like in the beginning when she sees that, oh, there's the guy next door, there's the evil guy, and then that just kind of happens, and then you get acquainted with the father, and then that just kind of happens. It's like you can meld those all into almost one scene, or you can make a scene do multiple things at once.
Right.
But then it started getting into this plot which was doing it for me, which was the twist. I actually liked the twist that happened.
What was the twist? I didn't even feel like there was a twist.
I guess twist is the wrong word, but my expectations were taken and then they were subverted because I was like, oh, ghost story. Oh, serial killer? Oh, guy living in walls. Oh, psychiatrist?
Right. Like, I can appreciate that idea. It didn't work for me because I never bought into it at any phase, really. Like, even if
Like bought into the story or the characters? Because the issue is that the main character, yeah, that's like the biggest issue with this script, is that she's really unlikable. You don't like her at all, and she never really has an arc in it. The only arc that really does happen is when she feels bad that she stabbed her stepfather.
Right.
And then after that, she's like, oh, I feel bad that I stabbed him, so I guess I'll start being a good person. But that was very weak sauce to me. I wish that instead she started realizing that the error of her ways. Because I would have liked it more if it became a film where it was about her just not liking her mom, because, I mean, that is really what it is. She doesn't like her mom at all. And then it just transforms into her learning that, okay, maybe there's just some deep-seated issues that I haven't dealt with before. And it didn't take that route, but I did like the aspect of the story in which it kept on subverting my expectations.
Okay, for me, it never achieved a suspension of disbelief because the way that the film engages with horror tropes is very standard and cliche. Just like I thought the score was very bad. I really dislike the score in this, actually.
Yeah, I don't remember the score at all. So
because it's so generic. It's so generic, and it doesn't have a twist on anything. Like the creative idea they had with the score was to have like a horror sting when something non-horror happens.
That's one thing I really didn't like. But at the same time, again, it felt like that they were almost trying to subvert the expectations with the story. But all the other aspects, that didn't really do that for me. So when the stings keep on happening, like the very first time you get that sting is when the mom comes and says hi.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but then I also think that the director is trying to go for this part where he's saying that, oh, look, you thought the mom is scary, but now she's just kind of like this blubbering kind of individual. So I feel like that he was trying to do that, but he didn't succeed in subverting the expectations in all the aspects of what he was trying to do.
Yeah, like I found it to be competently put together, I suppose. But the thing is, the horror didn't work for me at all because it's very, very familiar. It's everything it does is very well trodden in terms of how it shoots a horror scene, the setup for horror moments, the scares. Everything has been done 1,000 times.
Yeah, the scares aren't very good.
And like, okay, I could guess I could forgive that if the comedy worked, but it didn't for me. think there was only one moment that I thought, oh, that's kind of clever, and that's when near the end the psychiatrist has the knife and he's kind of walking up to the cop.
Oh, that's great.
And the
Yeah, I
cop's like,
love that.
oh, thanks.
Yeah,
I'll use this for.
yeah,
Like, okay,
that's great.
that's a funny idea for a little moment, but that's the only thing that's stuck in my mind is, oh, okay, that's kind of clever. And I didn't even laugh, but I just thought to myself, okay.
Right.
I can't forgive a movie for being boring, you know? And like
No.
you know,
no. I
people-
mean, like when I go to see Sonic, I can't forgive that.
But I mean, that had a giant budget, so they have even less excuse. But you know, like some people got on my case about me criticizing it being a one cut because
Oh, really?
yeah, because like you know, it had a tiny budget, and like we compared it to Haunted Hill or whatever.
The Netflix, this one.
Yeah, which had a way higher budget, like per episode, probably had a much higher budget
Yeah.
than the whole movie of One Cut of the Dead. But I don't feel that that makes it better. You know, sure, it
Like, you're not saying that just because it's a low-budget film and they did an adequate job, you don't feel like that you should be jumping up and down for it.
no, like it's to be applauded. If you achieve something at a low budget, yes, that I give you extra applause for that. But if you fall short, I'm not gonna like push you over the finish line just because you have a low budget. You know?
Right.
That lives in this house. What is your business here?
So the thing is, to make those twists work, I feel like you have to be engaged in the movie.
Yeah, because at that point, if you're not engaged, then you just don't care anymore. And so you're like, whippy.
Yes. So I'll give a few examples of the kind of things that took me out of it. The fact that she was so unlikable and they did nothing to endear us to her was a big problem for me. Two main scenes stand out to me at the beginning of the film where her mom gets home and the protagonist has like eaten a bunch of food that she wasn't supposed to eat because it was for dinner and left a big mess, and she was just drinking beer on the couch and didn't even talk to her mom. She was just really like,
Yeah, that's the moment when
like-
a lot of people kind of check out because, like, this is a mean person. But I would say that at that point, I would have been fine with it if she did have a stronger arc at the end, if she came around.
Sure.
Because I don't mind if a protagonist is unlikable. I care about mainly the journey that they're going on. And this wasn't necessarily a good journey because she didn't really have an arc. But to make it a better film, that is what you would do.
you give her something like
You give her a backstory and you say, okay, well, why does she hate her mom so much?
exactly.
And then you have her come in and say, well, I just don't like my mom because of this and that. And you just kind of get the idea that she's a misfit, and it just kind of carries throughout the film.
It was so shallow. We never understood why she was the way she was. And that's what's interesting about characters who have problems and who struggle, is that we find out why they're struggling with these things they're struggling with, like what they're struggling with, why they're struggling with it, how they're trying to get around it, and how they eventually overcome it. That's what's interesting about someone who starts off.
Journey.
Yeah. And there was nothing there. Because the other scene at the beginning, like she's watching TV and it's kind of loud and the mom comes in to ask her.
Yeah, that's the scene. That's the one I'm talking about where...
It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, you're a
I
really
hate
horrible
you.
person. Yeah.
You're horrible. So the problem is they start off with her being unlikable, and they kind of expect us to just kind of be on her
Accept that.
side. Yeah. Because we start seeing several scenes from her perspective, but I'm not in her shoes. I'm not with her already.
Yeah.
And then they basically go straight into these horror tropes of like the doll that like is sort of maybe alive. And so they didn't pay it off in a comedy way, even though it seemed like there was an opportunity to, because they set it up like me as the audience, when she's like she looks at it and her only thought is it's possessed, it's evil. So they keep playing these moments straight. The things that are designed to be scary to the audience are also scary to the characters, which basically means there's no subversion to the boring horror tropes. And they did this other times too with like the cop who like is supposed to be watching out for her. He just turns into a
Titan
ghost
guy.
hunter.
See,
basically.
I love that because it kind of seems like his basement kind of thing that he just does in his spare time. Such a nerd, and he just keeps it under wraps. And then all of a sudden he just comes down to the basement and they're all talking to him. And they say, oh, we think it's haunted. He's like, do you? He's like, you know, he holds it up. So I think that's kind of cute because it's just kind of his side hobby. It's kind of like Mike, that guy.
Well, I thought it was a cute idea, but it just the way it was executed didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Because even if I like the story on paper, there's something about the way that it's being told I don't like in almost every scene. So that was such a running theme for me. I don't know how I can go through every detail, but like near the end, she has a knife and she's confronting the psychiatrist, and her mom's right behind her. So it's 2 versus 1, and they have the knife, and he charges at them, and then they run away, and then he gets the upper hand. Like, what?
Yeah.
How, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's one example. Like, I feel like there's something like that in so many parts of the movie that for me it's like, that just doesn't.
And it's hard because when you're filming a film for horror, you can run into a lot of those tropes. But also at the same time, it's difficult because in so many horror films, it's hard for me to understand, like, okay, well, there's fear going on. So would I actually act in that way? Would I act logical? Would I act illogical? It's and I think that's such a fine balance because you need to feel like, okay, so you need the audience to believe it just enough where you would say, okay, maybe I would be illogical in that situation, but at the same time, it's so easy in so many horror films because I do it all the time. I look up and I say, that is so why? Roar! I'm a monster. I'm behind this door. Don't go in there. I'm gonna go in there.
You have to earn it.
Yeah.
You have to build us. You have to convince us that is how the character would act.
Right. Yeah. And it's a fine line.
Yeah, and I don't think this did. I don't feel that this film did that very well. And because I didn't buy into what the characters were doing and why they were doing it.
You weren't emotionally invested.
Yeah, all the characters felt artificial. I didn't really care about any of them. I didn't believe anything. Like that's the main problem. I didn't believe anything in this film.
Okay.
So because of that, like even though on paper I agree, like it's a cool idea to just like start up with one kind of horror-ish thing and then transition to something else. Like that's a cool idea to keep changing it up, but it had no impact on me at all.
All right.
Would you recommend this to people in general, or would you?
I think I would.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that it wasn't a Clove Hitch Killer. It wasn't a Halloween, and it wasn't the Invisible Man. But I think that it's adequate enough to get some entertainment value out of it. I also just enjoy films that are from a foreign country just because I enjoy seeing that different aspect of like what is a different culture, kind of like how do they act, what's going on. And that woman that's in this, she's been in Taika Waititi's films a few times.
Yeah, she's in Hunt for the Wilder People. Yeah.
Yes. I always enjoy seeing her.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the production value. So, yeah, I would. I mean, it's not a strong recommendation, but I got enough enjoyment out of it where I've seen it at least twice now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think the average comedy or horror film I don't enjoy, but I guess a lot of people do. So, like, if you're looking for the horror formula, and that's what you want to see, I could see you enjoying this. You know that the beats of a horror movie. And if maybe the humor in this will work for that person, I don't know. That didn't work for me. I could see that being more enjoyable.
like, if I had to make this film, I would have changed it a lot. I would have changed a lot. I would have done so much differently.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it, but it's not bad. And I think if you're looking for like if you're looking for an average horror movie, you'll probably like it because it does things that an average horror movie doesn't. So yeah.